guys, welcome to this video. I'm Ellen, and this is my movie wrap-up for the month of June, which is where I pretty much just talk about all the movies that I watched in June. And I'm very sorry that this video is late. I started off this month being really sick, and so it took a while for me to get out of it, although I am now still finally getting out of it. I'm still a little sick, but well enough to be seen in front of a camera, pretty much. I also think you might have noticed if you've been here, I usually have a book wrap-up. I do not have a book wrap-up for this month. I was in a pretty bad reading slump, so I will talk about that next month. So I watched a total of 7 movies. Very excited about it. For statistics, because I always like to start off with statistics, we'll start with genre. The genre was pretty much a little all over the place. I had 3 comedies, 1 biography, 1 documentary, and 1 animation. Hello. It is Editing Ellen here. I have realized while editing that I forgot to mention a statistic that I usually like to talk about, and that is rating. So I'm gonna put that here. So I watched 1 movie that was rated G, 3 PG-13 movies, 2 R-rated movies, and a movie that was not rated. I don't know why, but it just did not have a rating. The longest movie that I watched was 121 minutes, and the shortest was 96 minutes. So total, I watched 746 minutes, which averages to about 25 minutes a day, even though I'm not watching 25 minutes of a movie every day. We're gonna add a new statistic to the movies, and that is movies that are directed by males and females. And because I want to try and watch a few more movies directed by females, because it is a very male-centric business. So I want to try and watch more female-directed movies and see how at the end of the year what the ratio is, and see what I need to work on for next year. Out of the 7 movies I watched, 6 of them were directed by males, and 1 was directed by a female. And then I always like to end with the stars. So my star ratings, again, I feel like we're pretty all over the place. I have 1 2-star, 2 3-stars, 3 4-stars, and 1 4.5 star. Editing Ellen here, yet again. I forgot to also mention the average rating for the month for stars wise. And so my average rating was 3.5 stars. It's not where I like to be, honestly. So, but that's where I'm at. So before I start talking about those movies, the 7 movies that I watched, I just want to go over some of the movies that I rewatched this month, because I do also like to do a lot of rewatching of movies. So I went to go see Aladdin again. That was a rewatch for me. As you can tell, I really loved this movie. Bye Bye Birdie, Tomb Raider, The Kid Who Would Be King, Nerve, and Warm Bodies. I'm back. Just hopefully this is the last time. I shouldn't promise that. But I also forgot to mention another movie that I rewatched, and that is Isle of Dogs. Okay, so now on to the movies. And the first one we're going to talk about is Rocketman. I tried so hard to watch this in May, and I just didn't get to it on that day. So I went to go see it as soon as possible this month, and I enjoyed it. It was very, fantastical with a lot of really great musical numbers. So Rocketman is just a story about Elton John's life, and it's told, through his music. So you have, some musical numbers, but yeah, it's pretty much just a movie about his life. The acting was incredible. I mean, I always loved Taron Egerton and Jamie Bell. They're 2 of, my favorite actors in the business. They're absolutely incredible, and what they brought to their characters was amazing. But even, Elton John's parents, the actors portraying his parents did a fantastic job. Just, this whole movie was very well acted, and I appreciated that. However, my biggest negative thing to talk about with the movie, I guess, is the pacing. The pacing was, to me, horrible. And granted, I understand they're trying to put a lot into the movie and try to not make it too long, which, by the way, this was the longest movie I watched. It was a little over 2 hours, and so I understand they're trying to put a lot of information in, but the pacing was still so fast. Granted, the first half was better than the second half, because the ending didn't really do it for me, but the pacing just kind of started off okay, and then by the end the pacing was just like sped up so much. Because the pacing was so fast, some things I don't think were explained well enough, so there were some parts of the movie that I still don't really understand what happened or what went on. That was my biggest issue with the film. Overall, I enjoyed it, but I think I was just expecting a little bit more from it, so I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next movie I watched was a Netflix movie, and that was Murder Mystery with Adam Sandler, Jennifer Aniston. They're back together for this movie, and I think this is one of their better movies. I know this has a lot of like mixed reviews. Some people really like it, some people really hate it. I actually really enjoyed this one. I thought this movie was super, super funny. I had such a fun time watching it. It was kind of like a mixture of Murder on the Orient Express and Clue. So Jennifer Aniston and Adam Sandler are going on their honeymoon 15 years after they're married. They're finally going on their honeymoon. They get to where they're going, which I think was Venice, Italy? Yes. Yeah. I think that's where they went. But they met someone on the plane who invited them to the wedding that he was going to on this like fancy yacht, and he was like super rich. So they decided instead of going on this like crappy tour bus, they're gonna go on this yacht to see this wedding and hang around a bunch of rich people basically. But then a murder happens, and obviously there's a mystery, and Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston are the two that are being framed for the murder. And so they're trying to, I guess, clear their name and figure out who actually killed this person. This is definitely not a movie to be taken seriously. It's a very lighthearted, fun movie, and that was exactly what I needed, I think, in the moment that I watched it. It is super predictable. Like, don't get me wrong, I predicted that ending from the very beginning, but I did have a fun time getting there. And the acting isn't great. I mean, it's like, okay. But again, I wasn't expecting major acting skills in this type of movie. I definitely did very much enjoy it, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, the next movie I watched was Late Night. And this was a movie I was very much looking forward to. I mean, I love Emma Thompson, and I like Mindy Kaling's books. I'm not huge on her acting, but I like her books, so I like her. But this is just a movie about Emma Thompson's character hosts a late night show, but it's not doing so great anymore, and they're thinking of canceling it, so she ends up deciding to get a female writer onto her staff, because she has only male, like white male young writers. So they hire a woman. This woman has no experience in writing or really comedy. She works at a power plant or something, and they hire her thinking she'll fail and then leave right away because they don't want her there. But she ends up trying to like prove them wrong, becomes a strong writer, and tries to help save Emma Thompson's late night show. But it is also too like a lot more than that. It's about, there's relationships, there's friendships, also just like Emma Thompson coming to terms with who she is, because it's also kind of like a Devil Wears Prada type of movie. And this was another one where like I enjoyed it, but it was just kind of okay for me. I think maybe this one too, I was just expecting a lot more than what I got. Like, it definitely did feel like The Devil Wears Prada, which, by the way, I love that movie. I just don't think this one quite met those standards of The Devil Wears Prada. It was just kind of like the imitation of it, but not actually being as good as The Devil Wears Prada. I really liked the friendship, and I really liked the storylines with all the characters and how they grow from the beginning to the end. I mean, I'm the kind of person where I prefer watching characters rather than actual plot. Not saying I don't like plot, I like a good plot, but I just prefer watching characters grow and evolve throughout a story. And so I thought that was done very well with this one. Emma Thompson is fantastic, as always. I love Emma Thompson. I feel like she could do no wrong in anything she does. But for a movie about late night comedy shows, I don't think this was very comedic. I didn't find this movie funny. I like barely laughed. So I definitely feel like some parts were smart and enjoyable and funny, but most of it I feel like kind of fell a little flat for me, especially because not everything got wrapped up or finished. Like there were a lot of like characters or parts of the storyline that just didn't get finished for me. Like they didn't really have a complete end for me, or they weren't explained well enough or something. That's where it kind of lost me. Overall though, yeah, it was fine. It was enjoyable. So I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Next was Men in Black International. This I was not expecting a lot because the trailers honestly looked really bad, but it was a huge letdown. I mean, not too much because again, I wasn't expecting a whole lot. The main characters, played by Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson, I felt they had very little chemistry together. Like, I know both of their acting is actually very good, but them together in this movie, it just didn't work for me. The only character I liked was Pawnee. That's because Pawnee was super funny. But the thing is, Pawnee's character was definitely not needed. Like, if you took him out of the story would not change at all. This movie just felt very generic to me and honestly really predictable. I predicted that ending from the beginning. It also had a lot of plot holes in the story. I mean, there were some enjoyable parts to it, but overall it was just kind of boring. So I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. The next story I watched was Toy Story 4. And this was a movie, going into it, I was like, this is not needed. As much as I love Toy Story 4 is not needed. And to be honest, I enjoyed the movie. But again, I don't think it was needed because 1, 2, and 3 had such a complete storyline. And the 4th one was just kind of like a where are they now? Just like a little follow-up to the trilogy that is Toy Story. I know a lot of people like really love this movie, but for me this is probably my least favorite in the Toy Story franchise, mainly because I again just feel like it was a movie that wasn't needed. It should have just stayed as the trilogy. I probably have a very unpopular opinion for thinking that, but I do. I think also too, like everyone said that they cried, they felt so many emotions. I didn't. And I felt some emotions, obviously, but I didn't feel them strong enough to the point where I did cry or anything. Like I did with Toy Story 3. Oh my god, I was a mess with Toy Story 3. But at the same time, you can't not enjoy a Toy Story movie. So like, I just want to make it clear, I did enjoy this very much. It just was not my favorite. Just like with all Toy Story movies, this movie had such a lot of heart and was very beautiful of a story. I really liked the villain, Gabby Gabby. She was an interesting villain and I really liked her. And I liked her story and her background, and I really liked Gabby Gabby. Another favorite character of mine was Forky, who was the new character. I loved Forky so much. I loved everything about Forky. I loved just the character himself. I loved his lines. I loved his storyline. I also really liked what he stood for in the movie. Don't want to give too much away, but like, I really loved Forky overall. Probably my favorite character in the movie. As much as I loved those characters, and I love the Toy Story characters, I don't think they utilized every single character the way they should have been. Especially like with Jessie too. Jessie was such a prominent character in Toy Story 2. And then Toy Story 3 she wasn't as prominent, and in here I felt like she was barely there. Same with a lot of the other characters. A lot of the older toys were barely utilized in this movie. So it just kind of makes me sad that I didn't get to see a lot of my favorite characters in this one. So that might have been another reason why I didn't like it too much. But the animation was great, as always. So yeah, no, I enjoyed it, but it was not needed, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next movie I watched was an Amazon movie, because I finally got Amazon Prime, mainly for this movie, and that is Chasing Happiness. A documentary about the Jonas Brothers and their comeback and why they broke up and what they were doing, but it also is about how they came to be the Jonas Brothers. I thought this was a fantastic documentary. I thought it was done very well. Granted, it was very formulaic. Like, there was definitely a formula to it, and I saw it plain as day. It had that typical rise, then fall, then rise kind of a story. But I still very much enjoyed it. That might be because I am a huge Jonas Brothers fan. I have been from the beginning. But I guess because I was like a Jonas Brothers fan, and I am a Jonas Brothers fan, I found it very interesting and actually very eye-opening, because there were a lot of things that I learned in this movie about how they first came to be the Jonas Brothers and like how the Jonas Brothers got so popular so quickly. Like, it was one of those things where I didn't realize the whole backstory of how they got to where they are. It was pretty shocking, to be honest. I did not realize that, their dad got fired for it. They got kicked out of their church. They were literally like had no money at one point. That was a very interesting thing to learn about, but also interesting to learn just why they broke up, and the struggles that they went through as brothers and the drama that happened. Watching all that unfold and how they grew from it definitely made me appreciate them more as people, but also as a band, and with their music made me appreciate it a lot more. I did enjoy the drinking game that they played in the movie that kind of like led off into little tangents throughout the documentary, which is why I felt it was also formulaic. But I liked that drinking game because it definitely brought a lot of drama and a lot of things that we probably wouldn't have known about. It also almost just kind of felt like that drinking game was therapy for the brothers. It got a lot out of them that needed to come out to help heal their relationship. I really enjoyed Chasing Happiness. I thought it was a fantastic documentary about the brothers, and now I heard the brothers are coming out with a book in November. Of course I'm gonna get it, and of course I'm gonna read it, and I'm very excited about it. So anyway, I gave Chasing Happiness 4.5 stars. Okay, and the last movie that I watched this month was Yesterday. I was so looking forward to this movie. It looked like a fantastic movie, and I was just so excited. It wasn't fantastic, but it was good. This is a movie where like all the power goes out throughout the entire world, and then when it comes back on, this guy whose name I cannot remember the actor's name either, but he is the only one who remembers the Beatles and the Beatles music. So then he starts, writing down the Beatles songs and producing them and letting them like go out to the world, and then he becomes like super famous with the Beatles songs, but it's still him like struggling with the fact that like these are technically stolen songs and everyone thinks I'm amazing for writing them. His whole struggle throughout the movie just was very well done, with him, struggling with the guilt of being like, this isn't technically my songs, like these were stolen, but like no one knows that because the Beatles don't exist. I also really enjoyed watching him like struggle too with not just that, but also with writing the songs and trying to remember the lyrics of each song, and I thought they did that very well too. It was just kind of like he's sitting there trying to remember the lyrics. He's like, what was it with rice? He was picking up the rice. And watching him for like a good portion of the movie just trying to remember the lyrics to every single Beatles song was really fun to watch and definitely felt realistic to the story. So I liked that a lot. The acting was absolutely incredible. I felt it was some of the best acting I've seen so far this year. Because, I love Lily James. Everything she has been in that I've seen, I have absolutely loved. And I loved her in this, and I thought she had really great chemistry with the main guy, Himesh Patel. I thought Himesh Patel and Lily James had such fantastic chemistry. However, now that I'm thinking about it, I totally forgot, not all of the acting was incredible. Ed Sheeran, he was just Ed Sheeran, so that was, like, fine. He was just being himself, even though he's technically not an actor. Kate McKinnon, I felt like, I usually really like her acting, and I usually really like her in movies, and I liked her in this one. I just felt like her acting was a little too over the top for this type of movie, especially compared to everyone else's acting. Hers was very over the top and kind of felt like she was in an SNL sketch when no one else was in an SNL sketch. But other than that, I felt the acting was fantastic. So, like, the story was definitely not what I expected, because it didn't go where I thought it was gonna go. I really enjoyed the story, and I thought it was well written, except for, one part, or, like, multiple parts, and this might be, like, a spoiler for the movie, but I'm not gonna try to give too much away. But basically, there were a few other things that people in the world didn't know about that only he knew. It wasn't just the Beatles, it was a couple other little things here and there. But I don't understand why those other little things weren't remembered by other people. Like, I don't know if it wasn't for the Beatles, these things wouldn't have come about, but, like, I don't understand how that could be. But also, too, it was just kind of like, let's just focus on the Beatles not being remembered and not bring anything else into the story, because that kind of was distracting and took away from the story. And I just also don't understand why everyone in the world didn't remember certain other things. Like, I don't know how that connected to the Beatles or to the story in general. So I feel like that was definitely not needed. But other than that, I felt the writing was really good. Obviously, the music was incredible. There were really great surprises. The ending, like I said, it didn't really go where I thought it was going to go, but I enjoyed it. It just did fall a little flat for me. Like, I feel like there needed to be just a little bit more explanation about a few things. And it was shot very well. So overall, very much enjoyed this movie. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And that is it for my movie wrap-up for the month of June. Please also go check out my June monthly wrap-up, where I just talk about my life and some TV shows, some songs, you know, favorite things of the month. And since I don't have a book wrap-up for you to go to, I may as well just put the book wrap-up that I uploaded last, which was my April and May book wrap-up, so go check that one out again if you want to. And that is it for this video. I will see you guys soon with more videos. Bye!